Without God, the whole world would erupt into evil, and people would go around murdering each other and essaying each other and stealing from each other. All these things would happen if God just took himself out of the picture. Well, first I'm going to say that your God Ben took himself out of the picture, because when you look at all the evil and all the things that have occurred in the history of man, your God was obviously very absent from any and all of those events. He was only present on the good side if you were on the side that was winning. I'm sure if you were the people in India when the British showed up and the Dutch showed up, you probably thought that your God, that God or whoever God was evil, was doing the wrong thing, had abandoned you. But yet for the British who showed up, God was on their side. For the Native American, you probably thought your God abandoned you. But for the colonials, God was on your side. If you was of the Vita, and when you were attacked by the Dahomey, the people of Vita probably thought their God abandoned them, while the people of Dahomey, God was on their side. You see, God is always on the side of the victor. But people like to make this statement about how God, without God, the man would just necessarily go into all these types of evil, that man would not have any rules, and that the only reason that, as someone put on on a post earlier today or yesterday, they were saying that the only reason I follow the rules of America is simply because of the consequences of America, or I'm just a good person. Well, I'm going to go with I'm just a good person. Because I'm a good person because I follow the rules, even the ones I know I can get away with by breaking. I still don't break them. Because there are many rules I can break and know that I can get away with them. But I choose not to. Not because of the consequences, because it's just not the right thing to do. But when I think about this historically, their point of God becomes invalid. Your point of God becomes invalid because before the Yahweh God was worshipped by a third of the population on this planet, the people in Babylon had their own God, but they had their own civilization with rules of how to live. The Sumerians, before your God, had their own rules of how to live. The Kemetic people had their own rules of how to live. No matter how far back we go in society, one of the oldest ones is Göbekli Tepe, Taran Tepe, and Bokuna Taran. These civilizations are 8 and 9 and 12,000 years old. But these civilizations had to have had and had rules of how to conduct themselves within their societies in order for their society to even function. You see, you cannot have a society without the people coming to an agreement of how they're going to exist with one another. And whether you have a God involved or not, the people are the ones who generated these rules of how they're going to live. Now, not all people develop the exact same rules. There are some places where they had rules for slavery and against slavery. There were some places that had rules of equality of men and women and non-equality of men and women. There were some that had rules concerning theft that we may say is harsh, like cut your hand off, where there's others who have more lenient rules involving theft. So everybody's going to have different rules depending upon where they are, the type of society they develop. But the Chinese developed rules and governmental systems without your God. So did the Southwest Asians and everybody else around the world before there ever was an Israelite or Hebrew, before there ever was a Abraham or Jacob, before any of your societies that worship the God Yahweh ever existed. People came together in a group and decided for themselves how they're going to live. Christians like to have the mindset that people were running around them all amok, doing whatever they wanted to do. And then somebody came down and says, no, God has said that you shall not covet another man's wife. God has said you shall not steal, you shall not murder, You shall not do all these things because God has said it. And all the people all of a sudden said, oh, I guess now all this wickedness has just been going away from me because somebody said that God said. It's not how it ever worked. You had a man, you had a woman. They decided they want to be together. In deciding they want to be together, they decided they're going to be a certain way towards each other. Then there was another man and another woman, and another man and another woman. And all of them decided they're going to live together. And all of them decided how they're going to live. They decided whether there's personal property or there's non-personal property. Many of the Mesoamerican, North American tribes didn't believe in owning property as far as the land, but did have their own personal possessions. So, whereas you look at the Aztecs or the Mayans or the Incas, they had personal property as far as the land is concerned. So people developed their own sense of how they're going to live together. And then as more and more people came in, they decided to increase whatever those rules are, or add to or take away from, based on how the culture moved. So this whole idea that your God is the one that created morality, that created laws, that created a way to move, that created society, is just a fantasy that you have in order for you to try to justify your belief in this God. Because if you took the Bible and erased it from history right now, we would still have rules that say, don't steal, don't kill, don't covet somebody else's stuff, be respectful to your parents. We would still have those rules. If you took the Code of Hammurabi and got rid of it, we still have those same rules. If you took the 42 Confessions of Ma'at and got rid of it, we still have those rules. Because some of those rules are just natural rules that man would come up with simply by living together. Simply by living together, we would come up with, don't murder somebody and don't steal from somebody. Those are just naturally things that will naturally have to be in place in order for man to exist together. But of course, we violate the hell out of those when it comes to our little tribe versus your little tribe. Because man will just break the rules as well if it's in his favor. So we don't need your God for morality. We don't need your God for creating society. So take that fantasy and go somewhere else with it, because we don't need it. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.